Action plans, but we're also going to talk about what you need to do to pass this class. Um, this is the Blackboard page. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. This is the Blackboard page. This is the assignments page. Let's see. It's side 291 35. Okay. So what do we need to do to pass the class? Here are the class requirements. You have all your quizzes, which I'm assuming you've got all almost done. I don't think there's 15 quizzes. I think there's only 12. But anyway, it's not important. You also need to write a paper, and the paper that you need to write is about your character's problem. Whatever happens to be, you need to write a paper about that. Your discussion questions, of course, and then your fictional biography you get 50 points for. And then there's 100 points worth of counseling sessions, 10 counseling sessions at 10 points apiece. Can you pass the class without this? If you did everything else, then possibly you could pass. That would be 40, that would be an 80, that would be a B. Yeah, if you got all the other points, then yeah, you could probably pass the class without doing any counseling sessions. But if you didn't have the fictional biography, if you didn't finish the fictional biography, that's 350 points. That's 70. That's a C. That would mean that you did everything else correctly, and so the answer is no, you can't. You just can't pass unless you do your fictional biography and do your counseling sessions, at least some of your counseling sessions. Um, so what are we talking about? Well, your character, which is a fictional character and it has to have a fictional name, of course. You need to create a history, and the history can be done by, oops, let me go back again, by clicking on this history form, character history form. It's on the assignments page. Click on that. This is an apple. I don't know what yours looks like, but that's what the form looks like. This is I stole it off the internet. It's a docx document so that you can fill it out. And then just email it to me. I have to put it on the discussion page. So just email it to me. I guess I could put a Dropbox for these things if I wanted to. I've got 6 of them in so far. So what that means is that only 6 people are going to be doing counseling. Because if you don't have a character, then you can't trade counseling sessions with anybody. Okay, let me go to the discussion page and we'll see what we've got. Okay. And they're down here at the bottom. So what you will potentially be doing. Okay, so this is how we're going to do the counseling sessions. So you need to contact the people who have characters, and their names are in parentheses. They are the people with characters so far. I think there's 6 of them, if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 6, yeah, there's 6 of them so far. So I have 6 of you that have come up with your character histories. So what you will do is you will contact the people that have histories and try to arrange to Zoom or to have some kind of a call. You can do this by cell phone. You can do this by Zoom or Duo or Facebook. There's a Facebook thing that you can use. Skype is the old system. You can do this by email, as weird as that sounds. I had a colleague that was in counseling for about a year and a half, and what she would do, she would, if she were in a crisis or she was having problems, or she'd just check in with her counselor once a week, she would email him and tell him what was going on, and then he would email her back with suggestions or whatever. So you can do that. You can email each other, and that will work as well. But this is what I will have to do. I will have to put this on here You guys can't put discussion questions. You can't create discussion questions, but I can. So you need to email it to me. Email me that form filled out with your fictional character. There's the assignments page. There we go. And here is the history. And then what you will do is, after you have a counseling session, you'll take your notes and you will attach it to your discussion. Now, what really should be happening is that after you put your notes down here, you will attach it to this person or that person. See, mine doesn't look like yours, so I really can't see what you're doing. But you will attach it just like as if it were a discussion question. You will attach your answer. You will attach your counseling notes. And then what potentially should happen is if somebody is talking to Salem White, they will look at the previous counseling session, and then they can go from there. So Salem White may have 5 counseling sessions with three different counselors, and each one will put their notes in here. And theoretically, what you should do is when you decide that you're going to counsel Salem White, you'll click on her stuff and you'll look at her history. This is before you start, so that you can see what she has put down. Now, having worked in a clinic, a lot of times these things aren't filled out very well. As a matter of fact, sometimes people will refuse to fill them out, and that's just the way it works. You're not going to get a whole lot of potentially you don't have to get a lot of information from these things, but of course you're going to start the counseling sessions, and that's where you'll get all your information. That's where you'll get the good information. Sometimes this has a pretty good narrative down here. But sometimes individuals don't want to talk about this on a piece of paper. It all depends on how gabby they are as to how much they will write down. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's how you will do it. You will counsel somebody, and then you'll put your counseling notes. And I will grade the counseling notes. I'm not going to grade the counseling notes for how in-depth they are. That's not what I'm grading. I'm just grading for the fact that you did the counseling session and you found something out about your client. Let's see how much I have to grade here. I have to turn in midterms next week, I think. Sometime. Anyway, that's not a whole lot. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with today's lecture. If you have any questions about this, you're not exactly sure what your client should do, you can't come up with a problem, just Google it. Find a problem that you've never experienced before, never experienced close to you. You've never had this problem. Anyway, we don't want to cause a relapse. Okay, here is today's lecture, Taking Action. What am I doing? All right, there we go. Taking action. The practitioner needs to learn specifics about the problem, such as where the problem occurs, who's involved, what are the immediate antecedents and consequences. Oh, wait a minute, there's something. Okay, I forgot. Yeah, let me go back to where I was. I forgot. Yeah. Things are working a little slow. Okay, these are the questions you need to cover in your counseling sessions. So I've given you a list. And here they are right here. There you go. Current symptoms, past psychiatric history, social development history, synopsis of the interview, the client's strengths, the client's goals, the diagnosis, any plan that you came up with. And one of the questions that you have to answer is are they suicidal? That's one of the questions you have to answer. If they are suicidal, then potentially, if this were a real client, then you would refer them to a, um, not an assignment. You would have to put them under suicide watch. They do that in different states, do it differently. So you'd have to put them under suicide watch. If they were harmed others, then you'd have to contact the law enforcement. You'd have to contact, it's your responsibility to contact the person that they said that they wanted to harm. And of course, the length of the session. These are the questions that you have to answer. So I try to make it as easy for you as possible. Topics to be covered in counseling sessions. It's on the assignments page. Once upon a time, and I'm not going to take this down, even though we're not going to use this. Once upon a time, we ran out of time, during a semester, and what I allowed the students to do was something else. But I want you guys to do counseling sessions. The more counseling sessions you do, the more likely that you will understand what counseling is about, and we'll decide whether you want to do that for the rest of your life. It's a fascinating undertaking to counsel people. So, you need to decide if you want to do this or not. Not the easiest thing in the world. It's not giving advice. It's listening to people and keeping your mouth shut. That's the hard part. When they tell you something shocking, you can't make it. You can't make a face at them. Staying neutral is not the easiest thing in the world. So, counseling is not for everybody. I told you I had a colleague that decided she wanted to be a counselor. Fascinating. So she started her counseling sessions. She was going to spend all this money becoming a counselor, and she was really good at giving advice, and everybody loved her. And it didn't work out. Didn't work out. After the first class, she realized that she had more problems than the people that she wanted to counsel. So she had to drop out of the program. Not everybody can do it. If you've got too many problems that you haven't dealt with, then you're not going to be able to do it, because you're going to be constantly dealing with with your own problems rather than your client's problems. Doesn't work. That's just not going to work. People that are recovered alcoholics, counseling alcoholics, that's possible. That's possible, but they've dealt with their problem. So if you've got a problem that you've never dealt with, then being a counselor isn't going to work. When I first started, when I first started counseling, one of my problems was I had a problem, and my problem was that my first wife had left me and abandoned her children, and that just I couldn't. That just didn't make any sense to me. So I had to deal with that before I could start counseling. And, eventually we got to that point. But I had to deal with my own problems before I could deal with anybody else's problems. Otherwise, if somebody came to me who had, if a female came to me and she was thinking of leaving her husband, instead of dealing with her situation, I would be dealing with her situation as reflected on what my situation had been before. And it just doesn't work, because a lot of you're trying to focus on your client, and instead you're focusing on, your history. And that just doesn't work. So anyway, counseling is a wonderful undertaking if you can do it, but you got to deal with your own problems first. Okay, so let's get back to what we're talking about here. So further exploration of the problem, the practitioner needs to learn specifics about the problem, such as where the problem occurs, who's involved. Does this only happen when you're at the Happy Time Bar on 37th Street? Is that where the problem occurs? Does this only happen when you go visit your Aunt Sally down in Cambridge City? Is this the only time that it occurs? who's involved with it. As long as your uncle's not there, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, if he's there, you get into a big argument, and people start throwing fists. What are the immediate antecedents and consequences? You start talking about politics, and Uncle Bill gets real upset and starts punching people. What meanings are attributed to the problem? And of course, you just want to talk about politics, and it's as far as he's concerned, it's a volatile situation. So these are all pieces of information that you need every time. Okay. I had a student who, every time she went to Great Falls, she couldn't go to Great Falls. If she went to Great Falls, she had been in the drug scene in Great Falls. So if just driving into town would put her in the feeling that I need to get a fix. I need to get a fix. So she couldn't drive to Great Falls. As long as she stayed out of Great Falls, she stayed clean. But when she drove into Great Falls, she would hunt down somebody that would give her some crack. That's where the problem occurred. That's what the problem was. Who was involved with this? It was all of her old friends. If she saw an old friend, then potentially they try to get her to use, because that's how they made their money. And of course, the antecedents were driving into Great Falls or finding a friend. And what are the meanings attributed to the problem? The problem is you're an addict and you need to stay away from Great Falls and your people that you thought were your friends. It's a real odd attitude about people. You never rat on your friends, she said. This was an interesting conversation I had with her because she had just spent a year and a half in jail. And the reason she spent a year and a half in jail is because her boyfriend at the time, she didn't want to rat on her boyfriend. But her boyfriend, her boyfriend's the one that turned her in. As it turns out, her boyfriend ratted on her and said that she was the one that was pushing, and he was actually not only the supplier, but he was the one that was pushing. She wasn't doing anything. But instead of defending herself, she allowed herself to go to jail because you never rat on your friends. All this came out after she got out of jail. Of course, by that time, he'd just knocked up somebody, and it was just a horrible mess. Anyway, you never rat on your friends. Understanding the environment can require further exploration. You need to understand the family, the neighborhood, the school, the agency that you're dealing with, significant groups in the area, organizations, culture, race, socioeconomic class of the client. You need all of that information. On the Navajo Nation, this is not difficult because it's the Navajo Nation. So you've got the race and the culture down, but what organizations are you dealing with? Are you dealing with Adabi? What are you dealing with? The school that you're dealing with, is it Round Rock or what? Okay. And of course, the socioeconomic class of the client is about the same for most people on the reservation, I would say. When I first started studying counseling in the middle 70s, action plans were either developed by the counselor or the agency the counselor worked with. Fascinating stuff. I took whole classes on how to come up with these action plans. And of course, there was nothing in there about working with the client on these. This is something that they wanted you to do before the client even came in for the first time. That's the way it was done back in the 1970s. Clients were thought to be too downtrodden to be able to help, and this is what they told you. This is the 1970s. Things were a lot different. Steps identified by the clients involve clients in developing an action plan. Now, of course, it's not the same as it was back in the 70s. Now, the client becomes involved with this. If he is too downtrodden or she is too downtrodden to help with the plan, then you can come up with the plan yourself. But you need to pass it by your client. You need to get an agreement from your client, because the reality is, if you give somebody something and they don't agree to do it, then they probably won't do it. They will accept it, but they won't do it. It's got to come from them. They've got to be part of the process. Involve clients in developing an action plan strengthens the working relationship, and it teaches the client skills. In the old days, of course, you were just supposed to help this person, and that was it. You weren't supposed to help them recover from whatever it was, or to tell them or to teach them that they had the ability to take care of themselves. It was very paternalistic back in the 70s. Families and groups all need to contribute. Ask clients which steps they see as difficult. Steps suggested by one member of the family or group may seem easy to one and not to others. The steps must be small enough that everyone can feel like they can work on the issue. Past successes can help identify steps and strengths. The practitioner can use exception finding questions to identify steps. This is similar to the goal setting process. Exception finding questions: recall a time when the problem did not occur, and let's identify what you were doing at the time. Brainstorm as many steps as possible without critiquing them. Evaluate each possible step. Organize steps by the prioritizing what is first, second, and etc. The clients need to see value in each step. The reality is that you're going to have your agenda. They're going to have their agenda. Their agendas are far more important than your agenda. You may not understand exactly what it is they're seeking. It is essential to work with clients on how they can use their strengths and capacities and resources at each step. The client needs to think about other times when they have faced new tasks. Organizing and creating incremental steps helps ensure success and helps the client to gain confidence. This process also teaches clients the process of creating plans to achieve goals. The smaller you make the steps, it will be incremental. But if you make the steps too far apart, if they're too wide, if they're not attainable easily, then one of the things that will happen is they will backslide all the way to the bottom, and that's not what you want. What you want is for them, even if it takes months or years, you want them to reach their goal and not to backslide. The practitioner needs to evaluate whether the client is satisfied with their progress. The practitioner can reuse the monitoring system that was established in goal setting. Little progress may relate to whether the client felt goals were attainable or highly valued. The progress made may seem slower to the practitioner. The practitioner should always emphasize positive steps. Always move in a positive direction. This is something I'd always tell my kids. No matter what has happened, no matter what negative thing has happened, you need to continue moving in a positive direction. What steps have you taken since our last meeting to move toward your goals? In the last week, what did each of you do to help make your time together go well? We had Mega Fun Week. Between now and the next time we meet, I want you to find one aspect of your behavior that went well and that you'd like to continue doing. After talking to your boss, how did you feel about yourself? Will you tell us about what you did that made things go better this week in your family? We have been working together for a few weeks now. Let's focus on what we have accomplished. Teaching can convey information. New information might help clients achieve their goals. Teaching can take place in session, workshops, etc. Teaching might involve diversity issues, resolving conflicts, making decisions, and/or leading a group. Role-playing or rehearsing can be useful. Practicing a new behavior in a safe environment increases confidence. During the action phase, it is appropriate and sometimes necessary for the practitioner to be directive. Being directive involves asking clients to do something new or to go in a different direction. You don't have to yell in their ear. Imagine you are talking to your wife now. Tell her what you want her to know. I notice you are directing your comments to me in the group. Would you look at several others while you are sharing? Between now and our next session, will you keep track of one thing you do for yourself each day? Reframing is inviting a different perspective. The practitioner invites clients to see experiences, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, or situations in a new way. Reframing can increase success in achieving action steps. Reframing can use questions to invite clients to see things differently. Reframing encourages clients to think about something they have avoided. Maybe his disruptive behavior in class is an indication that he is bored. Identifying discrepancies is similar to confrontation. By identifying discrepancies, it usually involves a behavior that is moving the client away, not toward a desired behavior. You're talking about being scared, but you're smiling. Previously, it seemed like we had reached an agreement, and now I hear you are not ready to do that. You said you wanted your son to move home, but you are also shaking your head no. Discrepancies can include what a client is saying or doing and what the practitioner is noticing, what the client is saying and what the practitioner heard the client say another time, what the client is saying in the meeting and the client's actions outside the meeting, what the client says is important or is the goal and his or her behavior. One of the things about discrepancies, there's a lot of passive-aggressive behavior. And what happens with passive-aggressive behavior is that the individual will agree with what you say and then they'll do something totally different. And that's being passive-aggressive. The passive part is them allowing you to tell them whatever you want to tell them. You feel like you've gotten them to agree to change, but the aggressive part is the fact that they won't do it, and they will aggressively not do it. That doesn't mean they're gonna punch somebody or they're gonna run down the street. It just means that they are. You're going to say, you need to clean your room. They're going to say, you bet, I sure am. And you come back 2 days later and their room is worse than it was when you left. So that's passive-aggressive behavior, the fact that they know that they're not going to do it. This is happening a lot. This is happening a lot because of the internet, is passive-aggressive behavior. So you'll get people that will go on to sites and they will read whatever it is, and the person will ask them for money or whatever, or ask them to help, and they'll say, I sure will, knowing, of course, that they'll never do it. Feedback can be in the form of stating what the practitioner sees and hears, sharing an awareness of what clients are showing non-verbally or expressing in their tone of voice. Groups and family members can be invited to give feedback. I noticed that you were smiling. You look like you were about to cry. I notice your hands are clenched. I think the team is beginning to agree as I see heads nodding. Self-disclosure can be used to share personal information, observations, and opinions to give the client a different perspective or offer an illustration or example. The information from the self-disclosure may be about the practitioner's personal experience or his or her experience of the client. Self-disclosure should only be used when the relationship is strong. Self-disclosure should be employed sparingly. Goals of self-disclosure: enhance or preserve the relationship. The practitioner's needs do not take precedence. used for the benefit of the client only, not for yours. Ethical concern of self-disclosure, it can be a way of subtly including personal values into the interaction, and you certainly don't want to do that. You need to be neutral. When responding to direct and personal questions, a practitioner should consider what led the client to ask the questions. Is it an effort to change the relationship to something less professional? A question may be a way of asking for advice. Self-disclosure can enhance the genuineness of the relationship. Immediacy is where the practitioner comments on what seems to be happening currently in the relationship. Immediacy can help the client understand other relationships. Immediacy involves the practitioner sharing his or her own thoughts and feelings. Immediacy is about what is happening in the moment with the client. And that is the end of the chapter. So get your histories in if you haven't done so already. The sooner you get them in, the sooner we can start counseling. We'll probably start counseling the week of the 24th. Will be the first week we will start counseling.